I believe we are, let me just make sure we are live. Live.
Good morning.
All right. Here it is, Pops. This is how well, for those of you who don't know, I am David Julius Tina. The man to my right is David Ronald Tina. We are the Men in Black today, which is apropos because we are going to put in the grave the story of Zillow. So this is how I lined it up for episode 79 of the Dave and Dave Show, Pops. Zillow here, Zillow there, Zillow everywhere. A story about NAR, realtor.com, and the founders of Expedia and Hotwire. Who is to blame, why it is a problem, and what is the solution? Set the table. So a lot of talk, a lot of brokers, a lot of local people having conversations about who's at fault, is it a problem? Here we are. So I want to create context and accountability around this subject because it's very easy to point the finger at Zillow or any disruptor. And while I am not an apologist or a fan of said Zillow, I am a realist. I'm a realist of how we got here, and I'm a realist of placing the blame where it lays. So let's start the conversation, Pops. You've been in the Vegas market doing real estate for 23 years, right? You've been involved with NAR, the National Association of Realtors, going on at least, 10, 11, 12 years.
Yep.
I was president. I was on the MLS. We understand this as a realtor. We understand this as a broker. We understand this as an owner. And where I believe we really have context and understanding is as a president of an association, whether it's local, state, or even regional. Fair?
Fair.
Let's go back in time. Let's go back in time and start with the pre-Zillow, pre-realtor.com days. Before the MLS went onto the computer, right? Went online. And once it went online and realtor.com was created and owned by NAR, right? Move. How did it work back then? Now I'm asking you a rhetorical question, but because I know the answer, but how did it work when you did 15 to 20 listings a year? How did it work with your leads and your exposure with realtor.com? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember with both Zillow and realtor.com
So realtor.com was first, so let's
first, and it was owned by NAR.
Yeah.
And then NAR sold it.
No,
And
you're jumping. I'm giving you a softball and you're jumping.
okay, so
You're an agent.
realtor.com used to, realtor.com would email you and say your listings on realtor.com. The areas of realtor.com could not be sold. So with
Why?
the original contract
For this.
with Las Vegas, you could not sell areas, impressions, zip codes. They were all, the leads belonged to the agent that had the listing. That's how it started.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because I thought you had this dialed in. They charged you, I remember you going, this is a bill, they're determining my bill, realtor.com.
By the number of,
I did the year before. It wasn't, right? What happened if you didn't pay for those listings? Where did the leads go? They just die?
No, they went to other people.
The brokerage, I think, right?
I don't know, because I wasn't in that capacity then. Because also, I don't know, because the bill was so minimal. It was like $130 or $160. It was minimal.
It was decent.
Well, not, I think it was like 130 a listing or something. It was minimal for the leads you got because you were getting all the leads on your list.
I'm gonna fill in a couple of the blanks. We had a carve out in Las Vegas. We were the only market to have it. I don't know who made the deal, but it was a genius where no one could buy our listing leads except for our brokerage or the agent, which there was some level of control. There is a strong point of view that is prevalent that if it's your listing, it's your lead. Brokerages used to say it's your listing, it's their lead. That changed quickly. I remember 8 years ago when we started this, there was a toggle on Zillow, realtor.com, Trulia, all of them, where we controlled where the leads went. Remember that?
I
And
do.
one of our point of differences was one of the differentiators where your leads are going to go to you at our company, right? We're not going to put our phone number, we're going to put your phone number. So realtor.com, I believe, was dead on arrival. You want to know why realtor.com never had a chance? You remember?
Yeah.
Because the realtors never trusted them and never allowed NAR to really run with this. Unfortunately, we call it like it is. Realtors are not innovators and in front of the game when it comes to technology, and they like to keep things the way they are. They're kind of late to the game. And back then the train of thought was control the data, control the world. Fair?
Yes. And then we tried, in my year as president, we tried to get that deal extended. And because it was the most super deal in the world, everyone was running at all these conventions to the realtor.com booth, and they would say, no, we can't sell Vegas, but next year we can. Well,
So
of course, they would not make a deal for that same thing we had because it was so terrific. And then they started selling
but it was
leads.
expensive. It was 7 figures a year for the association to buy that out. It was not cheap.
But it gave us exclusivity, which we never had again.
True. But I do believe that realtors in general undermined the capability of Move, which was the subsidiary of NAR. They put a governor. You know, when you drive a car, there's a governor on it where it won't let you go past like 90 miles an hour because it was so fearful that the cat was going to get out of the bag. Once the data became ubiquitous, you know what that means?
Yeah, I do. I'm a reader.
It became available to everyone. They were so fearful that, you know, technology was going to replace a realtor. So while they were hamstringing they hamstrung realtor.com, in comes multiple different new avenues, right? With the number one being Zillow, which owners and shareholders were Richard Barton, who started Expedia, which freaked realtors out because Expedia did what to travel agents?
Put them out of business.
Then one of the other shareholders, Spencer Raskoff, which he was one of the starters of Hotwire. Same story. So there's a thing called IDX. It's Internet Data Exchange. And the way it works is this. For those of you, I want you to understand the comprehensive story. We all agree to cooperate on a multiple listing service. It's been the game changer of our business, the MLS. One spot where all the data is in with realtors cooperating with each other. Let me give you what it looks like without it. It's called the commercial space, where you got to go on multiple different sites to try to find what's available. You have to, like, literally, even in 2020, drive by areas and see signs. It's disjointed. There's no code of ethics. It's a nightmare. Or if you go to try to buy property in Europe or in other countries, one company has 100 listings, the other company has 100 listings, and you got to go to multiple companies just to see what's available. It doesn't help the consumer, Doesn't help the client. It's not a cooperative way of doing business. So the multiple listing service decided to have this thing called the IDX, which says that if, are you following me on this, Pops?
I love IDX. It's,
Which basically
I,
says that us as brokers can put on our website a search function that lets our clients search not only Urban Nest's listings, but every listing inside of the MLS for Las Vegas. And in the spirit of cooperation, it doesn't show up as Urban Nest, or like all 5,000 listings right now don't show up as Urban Nest. It shows the company that it's listed with and the person that it's listed with, and it should be in their number. Now, nowadays, you need a magnifying glass to find that information, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Well, Zillow came in like this. They said, listen, we're going to take this IDX and we're going to create a national feed. And what was their point of difference in the beginning? Why did they get such great traction? Do you know what was their main point of difference that did it?
no.
Think about it. What can you find on Zillow?
The Zestimate?
The Zestimate. The Zestimate was the
Oh,
differentiator in the beginning. No, I mean, think about it. People love the Zestimate, even though it's not accurate. People love being able to sidestep having a conversation with a realtor and going on and finding out a really poor estimation of what their house is worth, right?
let me stop you. Do you think now with them getting the data feed of all the MLSs that the Zestimate is becoming much more accurate?
Listen, everyone has this estimate now. It's maybe a little, they give you ranges, other aggregators. I think it's still getting better, but in all fairness to Zillow, because I call it like it is, they have fine print and say market by market how well they are on or off. I think a market like Long Island, they're much worse, where you have different acreages of land,
Yes.
different
Yeah.
custom houses. I think these aggregators really only go price per square foot. And when you start putting in like views and golf course lots and sizes of land, you really custom houses, they lose. But they were also on the internet boom, and it became real estate porn, right? People loved being able to search, right? So in all fairness to Zillow, they created something that was a need, because I believe NAR and realtors, local associations, they left open a window. They left the door cracked. And Zillow walked right in. Okay.
Mhm.
But this is where the conversation to me breaks down. Agents and brokers are complicit. Because in the beginning, if you were a smart agent, you were like, all right, this is a lead gen. I'm going to pay Zillow. I'm going to give them the IDX feed, and they're going to give me leads off of their site. And especially in the early 2010s, the late 2000s in general, the smart money was, wow, it isn't cheap to get these leads, but the return on investment is pretty good. Fair?
Fair.
So here we are. Now, Zillow starts gaining market share. They start gaining power. They're a publicly traded company. They're the hot new person on the ticket, and you have brokerages saying, these are the way you can lead gen. You can do relationship-based business, which I still believe is the best, but you got to invest time in relationships. It's not instant gratification. Or you could dial for dollars and do expireds, which no one likes doing that, very few. And this became a cheap alternative, a low barrier entry alternative to get leads. And brokers weren't fighting it because they're like, my agents are producing more business. And agents were saying, this is a way I can like really build my business. Smart agents would pay the tariff and then get the client and then build relationships off that client. It was pretty fair. I don't know if it was super harmful back then, but it was cut and dry. Fair?
Fair.
But then we started having the conversation. Are they going to replace realtors? What's their intent? And for the longest time, Zillow held the company line of, we're just an advertising company. We are pro realtor. We are realtor friendly. We want to build as much business for realtors as possible. And in all fairness to Zillow, as owners of a company, there are huge costs around space, staff, you name it, right? I mean, for Zillow to be in every single market, and then not even getting into the liability of the actual real estate transaction, okay? But then in response to the growing market share of Zillow, what did NAR do with realtor.com?
They sold it.
And as an RVP, I'm going to put you on the spot as an interviewer. Is there a secret handshake? Is there an agreement behind closed doors that we have never seen? Because I don't understand how this NAR deal with, a lot of people don't know this, realtor.com is owned by Rupert Murdoch, Fox News, that conglomerate. They own a ton of real news. What was that? What was the theory? Because at first it was like, oh, we're going to get our own Mike Tyson in this fight. It's realtor.com. They're going to protect realtors. They're going to go up against Zillow. And then what happened was realtor.com just became Zillow. Is there agreement? Like, it's our name. It just doesn't make sense.
I don't believe that realtor.com was losing market share tremendously poor to Zillow. And they speak at NAR. I think NAR owns a small percentage, but not enough a percentage to stop them from doing what they want to do. They may own 3 or 4%. So basically, realtor.com is coming out to compete with Zillow because Zillow was dominating them in the market and people were buying Zillow leads instead of realtor.com. And do we have a say? If there's 100 men on the board and there's 2 from NAR, the answer is no.
All right. So NAR sold realtor.com. There was some buzz. And then all of a sudden we found out very quickly that realtor.com just wanted to become what their point of difference was. We represent you, but yet we're going to run our business very similar to Zillow, charge people for zip codes,
Right.
listings, and whatnot, right? So here we are. So we continued going. Sleep with one eye open trust versus, we call them the syndicators. You had Trulia, you had homes.com. There are a lot out there where you give them the data and they basically, for all intents and purposes, sell. What would happen is they would put different realtors next to, so if I had a listing and I didn't pay, what we were able to do at first, and I think it's still like this, but we were able to put like agent A, B, and C prominently, and then agent D would be the actual listing agent of the listing, right? That's how
Realtor.com still puts prominently the listing agent. They do that.
So here's the thing. Then what happened is iBuyers. And what happened is Zillow decided that they were going to, because in all fairness, Zillow looks at their biggest competitor, and this is me just making an assumption, as Redfin, right? Redfin decided to do iBuying, so did Open Door, and these companies came in. Now, iBuying, for those of you who don't know, we've talked about it extensively, is basically CarMax. You take your car, you take your house to someone and say, do you want to make an offer on it? They offer you a shitty price for your house. And if you're gullible enough to give it to them, you give it to them. Now, if this is a car and you want to save $2,000 or $3,000 by not dealing with the transaction because there aren't car agents all over the nation there to help you out, you do it. But if you're selling your house when there's realtors everywhere charging anywhere from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7%, whatever, you hire a realtor, because what happens is these companies offer you garbage offers, right? Maybe more convenient, but that cost is not worth the convenience, especially when you can get a professional to help you. So Zillow made a pivot. They decided to become part of that game. And that's when they started brazenly just saying, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to take care of our own agents that buy with Zillow. Well, just recently, realtor.com did the same thing. They partnered with Open Door, and they're supposed to be the ones that are friendly to realtors. So here we are. People are losing their freaking minds. Agents blame the associations. Associations blame the brokers, because the argument is, what, Dad? What can agents do to just, this is not the right answer, but what does everyone think?
They all think that all the agents feel that if they don't pay for the leads, that Zillow and realtor.com are going to take over our business, and in the end take us out of the business, which is not true.
But they also think, why do we give them our information? Let's just turn off the feed.
Oh, the turn off the feed, famous
Turn off the
line.
feed, right? Now, here's the thing, guys. This is where Zillow, more than even realtor.com, more than anything, they win. It does not help a seller when a website like Zillow gets over 100 million hits a month, and you say, I am going to not advertise your listing, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, on Zillow because it doesn't help me as a realtor. Fair?
Let's talk about how they accidentally turned off our feed. And in one weekend, we had all our realtors calling us, all the sellers calling. I went on Zillow, my house isn't in there, and everyone was going out of their mind with what happened. It was a technical thing.
So you're jumping the gun, but yes. So here's the deal. The agent that isn't informed will show up to a meeting and say, Mr. and Mrs. Association, Las Vegas Realtors, Nevada Realtors, National Association of Realtors, shut off the feed to the MLS. Well, there's two major issues with this. One, any attorney will tell you we could potentially have antitrust issues. That's number one. If every broker in town decided to have a secret meeting of the 5 families, right, like a mafia meeting, and said, well, if you turn off realtor.com and you turn off Zillow and I turn them off, we'll just block them out, right? Well, that's antitrust. So that's not the answer. The other thing is, agents think that the associations make the choice. Now, the associations just make one choice, whether or not they're going to give them a direct feed right from the MLS, or whether they're going to enforce each individual brokerage to give them a feed just from their brokerage. So the reality is your broker makes the decision, your owner. And here's the thing, guys. Everyone says they want something, but in reality, they don't, because agent A will bitch and say, Zillow is going to kill our industry. But if agent A goes to take a listing and seller says, I want my house on Zillow, and that agent says, well, my brokerage doesn't allow it, agent A is not getting the listing. Broker who has Agent A, if they're going to keep their home off of Zillow, are no longer going to have what, Dad?
Anybody listing with them.
Or agents.
Yeah. Well, it starts with the sellers complaining. Then the agents go, I'm going to go to a company that's going to let me put it on Zillow. And the cycle just circles.
So when we say, is it that we're complicit in it? That's the reality. And Zillow knows this. They know this because they make deals with national chains, which they don't even need anymore. And they've exploited the situation. And guess what? From a capitalistic standpoint, they had every right to, because no one gave them an alternative.
Right. But back up a few steps. When we were on the association and we were thinking of possibly cutting them off, brokerages in this town had their own private deals with Zillow.
They did.
And what would have happened is every company would have lost it except for like 3 companies or 2 companies in the city, which would have meant if that agent was going to list with you and they said, oh, we're cut off with Urban Nest or any other company, and then they go, oh, these 3 corporations aren't, they made private deals without the association. So that again would have brought us way back to what do we do? What do we do? We only want to have a fair playing field, and you don't. So there's a lot of pontificating on what to do, but then there's reality. And the reality is what you're saying.
And at the time, I mean, we even had multiple agents that their business model, their plan was buying
Leads.
impressions and leads from Zillow. So we would be cutting off their legs as well. And here's the thing, like, if you're going to get rid of something, you better be willing and able to provide an alternative. And that we've identified who's to blame, and I blame us. Because like one of my favorite quotes is, we've identified the enemy and it is us, right? Because we did not, in all fairness to NAR, there was a time where they tried creating realtor.com. Agents didn't trust NAR, they didn't trust the technology, they didn't trust the websites, they undermined and sabotaged NAR. So and they didn't realtor.com didn't have a chance. We opened the door because that was going to happen. And reality is the data should be free. People should be able to search houses across the nation, across the globe. The information age is here. Let it free. The people who want to bring it back in, that's not the answer. Let it out, let it free, let it go. Just let it go.
Yeah, because we're talking about 2 sites, but there isn't 2, there's 30 top sites. And if you start restricting it, I always say to the agents, make yourself the buyer or the seller. Well, if I'm the seller, I want my house to go to Mars for Martians to see it.
Yes.
Because I want my house sold. So that theory does not work.
And you kill one monster, another one pops up. And the reality is that, let's say, this, as a president, these were the things that, and agents would come to me and be like, well, Redfin's a problem. I'll be like, first of all, you're breaking the code of ethics. Redfin is a real estate company in multiple markets, and they have a syndicator as well. So who would love if realtors said, forget realtor.com and forget Zillow? Redfin, because they would be the alternative, and they're in a lot of markets.
And on and on and on and on.
And on and on and on and on, right? So I just want to make sure we stay up, because so who's to blame? We've identified that. There's enough blame to go around. And you blame the brokers, you blame the agents, and you blame the association. That's just the way it is. We've created the issue. Why is it a problem? So here is why should we even say this is a problem? And here's where I believe it's a problem. this is not going to help the consumer in the long run if all we see is a consolidation of large entities that are backed by venture capitalists and backed by Wall Street. And where I see a potential issue is that the real estate industry becomes like the banking industry, where you only have four main players, right? In banking, you have Wells, Chase, B of A, and Citi, right? Those are your four main players. And then what happens is they consolidate and eat up all the local banks and the independents, that your level of service at these banks become disaster, right? You have all the fraud, you have all the tic-tac banking fees. This is what's happening in the mortgage industry. This is what would happen in real estate. You would be getting, instead of professionals, you'd be getting hourly, not taking a test. There would be not a higher level of independence, and you'd be getting away the small businesses, which is an issue. And I don't think that helps the consumer at all. You agree?
I agree.
All right. So what is the solution? And here's the answer. Here's the answer. There is one dynamic, amazing association run by probably the best CEO in the business of real estate, a man named Bob Hale, and an association called the Houston Association of Realtors, that got in front of this. And they created har.com. It is now morphed into, instead of the Houston Association of Realtors, of Homes and Apartments and realestate.com. And what they did is they knew this was an issue right off the bat, and they created a forward-facing site. And this is what it looks like. You basically take the MLS on the back end, or excuse me, on the back end, and this is what you do. You flip it to the forward, okay? And they beat out Zillow in their market, the association. And it's not even like, it's just fair competition. And they have the most accurate information, because who knows the Houston market better than the Houston Association of Realtors? No one. These national conglomerates can beat you on a macro level, but they're not going to beat you on the ground, in the market, in the community, in the level. So
But they're the only ones that succeeded in doing it, right?
only ones, because the infighting, the competition, the bureaucracy, and the bullshit of local associations and local owners competing with themselves, they can't figure it out. And if I was NAR president, which I would not do with a gun in my head, okay, is number one thing I would do is create a nationally public facing site that brought together every single MLS. And rather than try to undermine and go after these other companies, just beat them or compete with them. Because then if I'm paying dues to NAR, I know the lobbying to protect homeowners' rights is so integral. That's something that NAR does so good. They do technology like shit. And if they would just say, we're going to invest in this, and every realtor invests, so that someone in New York can search a Las Vegas home and it's listed by David Artina, and they pull up the listing and there's your smiling face, not three other people who know nothing about the listing, your listing, your lead, paid for by all of us. And even on a local level, if we had to go back to a way of paying for our own listings, I think people would be all over that, all over it.
That's what we did.
And it's kind of like FUBU, like that clothing line back in the day, for us, by us. Now, local associations try to do this, but it doesn't work if I can only go to Houston and search their houses. It's got to be nationwide. When I'm on realtor.com or Zillow, I could search Corona del Mar, which I fantasize about living in. I can search Park City, Utah, which I fantasize about having a summer house in. Like I could search anywhere, right? Until NAR brings everyone together and puts this out there, the game's over. What do you think about this? I think this is the only solution.
I think it's a phenomenal solution, but I don't think it'll happen.
Why
I think
not?
it's because it's a huge, huge undertaking. And I don't think that NAR wants to be an MLS. They want to be an advocate of private property rights more than that. But I don't think, because basically they become an MLS.
Yeah, but NAR is a membership driven association. They're into collecting memberships. Unfortunately, that's the game. Size of membership. And there's going to be no membership. There's going to be very limited membership left. NAR, they have to invest. And it's a lot easier than you think. You can conglomerate regions of MLSs. It's kind of like college football. The Big 12, the Big East, the Big 10, the Pac-12. You put them in, and then all they have to do is sync up. That's it. And you know what? I'm so open to information that the public should be able to see about 95% of what an agent sees on the MLS. You should be able to flip around the majority of the information. There may be some agent remarks and co-op and stuff like that that the public doesn't need to see. But ultimately, that's how they win. And I think the level of information, the deep data that each local or city can provide on their own front-facing portion of this could win if you can go deeper and deeper, because nobody understands our market the way we do.
I
And
agree. Well,
what?
NAR has RPR, and RPR is almost for us, not for the public. It is you could search in detail on RPR of almost every city in the country now.
Yeah, I mean, again, listen, you got to understand the consumer. The consumer is looking at, I'll take it another step. It's Tinder for people. They're scrolling, right? I'll date this house. I'll swipe right. I don't want to date this house. I'll swipe left. I'm assuming that's the way you swipe. Tinder was before my time. Thank God. I probably still wouldn't be married. Like it's about the swipe. It's about the scrolling through the beautiful pictures, the walkthrough. It's about the information. People they want to know what it is. The Zestimate was ingenious. There should be an aggregation of all the information. And yes, what you're talking about is what a lot of companies are doing, Dad. And whether it's Remine, whether it's RPR, whether it's Zillow, what they're doing is they're cataloging every home in the United States. They're getting data on every single piece of property. So yes, you'll know who owns it, what it's zoned, if you could Airbnb it, what the taxes are, what the schools are. This is the information. You got to get all the information out because, and then for those of you who are like, Dave, what the hell are you talking about? Here's the thing, guys, the information, the data, that ship has sailed. We're not information providers. We're the people who disseminate the information. There's too much information. It's confusing, it's overwhelming, and there's too much noise. The realtor is the expert that cuts through all the nonsense, all the ads on the first page of Google, all the ridiculous articles, all the crazy fake news information. I mean, nowadays you can't even look at the sky and agree on what color it is because someone's got some alternative interpretation of it. Am I right? I mean, think about politics now, right? We're the bipartisan disseminators of information locally in our areas of expertise, who are supposed to be able to say, here's why Summerlin, here's why Green Valley, here's why Aliante, Providence, here's why Southern Terrace, Inspirata, Southern Highlands, and understand what is going on. So let the data free. I just don't think, I think it's going to get more and more segmented, and here's what's happening. Instead of abundance, real estate companies are going into scarcity. So I'm not going to name names, but I know of a large company that's buying up a lot of real estate companies backed by a tremendous fund that is saying that we're only going to try to market our own properties and keep it off the syndicators. That's a problem. That's going backwards 50 years,
It is.
right? Who do we have to corner at NAR to make this initiative? Because the minute you say front-facing national MLS for all the world to see, people run for the hills. That's
Yeah.
what NAR is. Then what the hell are you doing there?
Well, the members stop it all the time. So you could have great ideas, but if the members are so afraid of a national MLS, which is all Zillow or realtor.com is, then they back off.
And you know what? And that's when, like, if you're not a realtor, if you're outside the industry, you go, you know, I don't blame Zillow. And this is where people think I'm nuts. Like, if they can't figure it out, if they're so stuck on infighting and only worried about their next closing at any expense, and they're not going to provide this service, then why shouldn't I walk in and do a better job of providing the syndication? So, you know, if you're going to tell me to get rid of realtor.com or Zillow, you better have an alternative ready to go. Because then what's the point? Then it's just hurting the consumer. And, you know, I had a buddy once say to me, I did a real estate deal for him, very intelligent guy, and he didn't believe in realtors. And at the end, he sold his house, a very hard house to sell. It was in a interesting area at $450,000 price, which good luck, right? And he bought new in Summerlin. We got through the whole thing, and he said, you know, Dave, I thought that Zillow and companies like, or, you know, aggregators would give me more information and do a better job. And I'm not here to just give myself kudos pops, but he said, a great realtor like you is worth 10 times more than a Zillow and information like that. But the problem is 8 out of 10 realtors are not like that. So issue number 2 for NAR is stop being stuck on having as many members as possible. Train your members, hold your brokers accountable, and make it more difficult to get in the business. Because what happens is, if it's so easy to get into the business, but so hard to be a success in the business, do you agree with that? Easy barrier entry, very difficult to be successful. What percentage of agents are out of business in 3 years? 80, 90?
New agents, about 80 to 90, yeah.
So you got tons of agents and they can't make money and they get desperate. And when they get desperate, what kind of service do they give?
Terrible.
What are they willing to do? If Zillow comes along or Redfin or Open Door and says, come work for me, I'm going to put a steady paycheck in your pocket, they're going to jump at that because they can't provide high level service. So we all know the issue, and everyone can bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch, but everybody wants change as long as they don't have to change and they don't want to do the work. So if you, as an agent that's watching this, you want to make change, call your local association, call your state association, call your national association and say, I want my dues dollars to go towards front-facing websites, front-facing MLS syndicators that showcase listings and give it to the brokerage and the agent that actually listed the property. That's how we compete. And I would even venture to say that Zillow and realtor.com and all the other entities would be like, come on, baby, I accept the challenge. Do you not agree?
I do.
So,
Totally.
you know, another broker did a post about a guy who was on the board who represents Zillow. And, you know, me and you were in for it, right? The guy is taking such a beating that I don't even want to call him out. The reality is that is such a small part of a much bigger issue. Him on a board, yes, it's an issue if the board's saying, let's do a front-facing website, and he's voting no because he wants to protect his golden goose. I don't think that's the case. What about you?
We have a rule on all the boards, local, state, national level. If any vote comes up that affects or profits what you're doing, you must recuse yourself. So if something like that did happen, I would expect the board to tell him to recuse himself. That's, to me, that's what it's about.
And then let's address buyer's agents. If you're a buyer's agent and you don't get a lot of listings and you got a problem with dues dollars going towards something that protects listing agents, guess what? Too bad, because the long-term result is helping you. Because I don't know about you, Dad. I mean, we could ask all 435 agents that we have, and if we said to them, there is now a Las Vegas Realtors website that's connected to a national database where you're going to have to pay a little bit more a year so that when you get a listing, your face is going to be on it. And all the leads and all the inquiries about that listing are going to go to you. I think we get 435 yeses. Do you not agree?
I totally agree.
And if we said, hey, you're going to have to pay a little bit more in dues because we're going to have to compete on a national scale. We're going to have an amazing website, an amazing phone experience. We're going to have to do ads that are during the Super Bowl and things like that. You think they buy in? I think they buy in.
In a minute.
And that's the solution. You cannot be living in scarcity like, you know, that's like saying like, that guy's beating me in the race. And rather than run faster or train harder, I'm going to go hire Vinny to take out his legs. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the conversation. Will you look at me when I talk to you?
I always am ADD looking all over.
But you see what I'm saying? So the conversation of let's shut off the feed, let's remove the person from the board, let's boycott, let's antitrust, that's not the answer.
No.
And the first thing is acknowledging that we were the problem and we made mistakes. Also saying this isn't going to be beneficial long-term for our industry or for the consumer. And then saying, okay, now we have to invest intelligence, money, and innovation into running faster and competing. And guess what? For 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe 5 years, we're just going to be fighting to be in the race. We're going to come in third, fourth, second, whatever. This is going to have to be a sustained investment, a long-term commitment to have a seat at the table and having vision. What can you do as an RVP to start shaking people's heads to wake up? Should I tag Charlie Oppler or Kenny Parcell? I mean, they're amazing. Leslie, they're amazing people. They're intelligent people. I know that they can do this.
Well, the way it happens is the way you're talking about it. So yeah, you know, everyone sounds crazy in the initial thought, right? When they say, wow, what are they thinking? And then that becomes the big idea. So my answer is sure, yeah, bring it up and see what they have to say. That's my answer.
Even if I'm realtor.com or Zillow, I support this. I say, you know what? I'm glad that you're finally admitting that you didn't step up and that you're finally willing to just invest and do your part. Like, people forget that Apple was on its last leg and Microsoft had to invest in Apple because of antitrust. Now think about that. Apple is almost has $1 trillion or like $500 billion of just a stash of money that they haven't invested. Microsoft is also doing amazing. It worked out for everybody, right? So
Did,
you could even say like, hey, Zillow, hey, realtor.com, hey, everybody, invest in this. Invest so you don't have an antitrust issue. Invest to show your pro-realtor stance. Invest in your competitor. And let's see, because I believe there's room for 2 or 3 or 4 aggregators. There's nothing, you talk about social media. We have a world where Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. TikTok wasn't even something a year or two ago, and now it's got hundreds and millions of people on it. It's not like, oh, well, all of these other ones exist, so I'm never going to create TikTok. It's just stupid little singing thing, and yet their market share went through the roof. There is room for everyone.
I would have never thought of TikTok, and it entertains me every day.
Right? So there's issues with it, whatever, they fix it. I think this is a way that we all invest. And, Brad Inman said something yesterday. I was watching an Inman event. I still got to go back and watch the rest of it because I was so busy yesterday, but it's on replay. And he said, this pandemic showed that how essential, down to the brass tacks, how essential our industry is. That it's not about realtors, not about brokerages, it's not about Zillow, it's not about the egos in the business. That real estate at its core is shelter. And shelter is essential no matter what, whether we're in wars, whether we're in pandemics, regardless of what we are in, we represent one of the most core, essential, basic needs in the world. And that is a place to call home, shelter. And when you break it down, you bring it all the way down to that level of what we do on our day-to-day is we put people in shelter where they have their moments and they live their life. If you break it down to that, you start going, wow, there's room for everybody. So I think this is a way to stop pointing the blame at the wrong people. And listen to me, I don't have a ton of friends over at Zillow. So you want to say that I'm an apologist or I'm taking too much blame for realtors, good luck. Because if there's a wall of faces on that place, I may be on it. But what I'm saying is, I am, again, Stockdale paradox. The brutal facts are the realtors allowed this to happen. And it's not the realtors going, well, that person allowed it to happen. Point the finger at yourself first. You allowed it to happen. Okay, we are where we are. We're behind the 8 ball. There are some issues. What do we do to fix it? So we identified the problem and we identified the solution. And the beauty, I believe, and this is not just for this issue, this is for almost any issue in your life. While you are the problem, you also are the solution. So, I know I'm so passionate about this, Pops, because I've looked at life from both sides now, right? So this is the way everybody wins. Is this something that people can get passionate about? This is why I bailed out of the whole game, because everyone was worried about their $100 dinners and their positions and their egos. There's some good people in NAR, don't get me wrong, that I love, but the onus is not on the real issue. Do you think that this is something you can rev up, or am I just screaming to the choir?
You're screaming to the choir, but I think it's like any other good thought. At first they'll poo-poo it, and then all of a sudden it becomes logical. So my thing is write it, present it to me, I'll present it to them, and we'll go from there. And that's how great ideas get started.
And that's the white paper. Like, I don't want to, me and you are two of the few people who said, because a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to get involved because I won't be able to do anything. Or I'm not gonna get involved because I'm not gonna be able to say what I want to say.
And that's not true.
I agree.
That is not true.
We walk the walk. You more so than me. You more so than me. But it's tough. It's tough because
Listen, we're not yes men. We never were. Being a yes person makes you friendly, kind, and popular, but it doesn't create any good to mankind. We have created the good for our fellow agents, for our fellow buyers and sellers, and doing the right thing is not the easiest path, but it always comes out the winning path.
it's the right path. And I mean, even if you start poking holes in this and you go, there's a lot of wins. Like people who still invest in Zillow leads or realtor.com leads, guess what? They still can because no one pushed them out of the game, right? It's just one more seat at the table. And it's like, even as brokers, we'd be able to say to our agents, listen, invest in the realtor or the NAR site because you want to protect it. But then you also may want to invest in Zillow to protect your listings on that forum. And you also want to, it may invest in realtor.com and protect it on there. Or maybe you just invest in the NAR one and you direct all your clients to that one. But the reality is they're going to be looking at it on Redfin. They're going to be looking at it on Zillow. They're going to be looking on realtor.com. They're going to be looking at it everywhere. But the studies do show that while they begin their search there on the real estate porn, the Tinder real estate app, then they call the realtor. And they don't necessarily go through the app.
Never.
We're actually co-opting the best move in the world, which would never happen, is if NAR just bought realtor.com back
Then it would be a lot different.
and said, let's keep all the teams in place. We're going to subsidize millions of dollars through our 1.5. When NAR needs money, they got 1.5 million realtors. They up the dues $2. That's $3 million. They up it $50. Let me do some quick math. What is that? So no, if there was 1 million, that's $50 million. If they upped it $100, that's $100 million on $100 raise for realtors a year. But what then would realtors say? Oh my God, $100 more a year? $100 more a year? So that you could have 100 million and go create a site? And then they're going to bitch about the dues to be a professional, when the reality is their cell phone bill every month is $250. Their gym bill is $100. Their Netflix.
Cable.
I mean, even if you're not on cable, just Netflix and Hulu and Disney, whatever, and HBO Max, that's another $50 a month. And you want to invest $100 more a year in NAR so that they could have $100 million more and protect your business, or at least compete? NAR needs a new marketing person. They need a new strategic partner, and they need a new chief technology officer, and they need an acquisitions and merger place. They need to build. And I know you're going to say, well, then go run for the board and do this. And then some guy who says, oh, I'm going to vote for the North gets voted over me because it's all politics.
Politics is life if you're going to get involved.
Do you not see this though, Dad? Am I oversimplifying it because it seems so simple? It seems like a simple.
You're oversimplifying it, but it's rational. It's rational that it could work. So, how are you going to conclude this, my son?
One, on every issue in your life, including this, start with yourself and take accountability and responsibility. Two, don't bitch, do something about it. Get involved, be willing to invest money, be willing to invest time, and reach out to the people who make decisions. Locally, Las Vegas Realtors, statewide, Nevada Realtors, nationally, the National Association of Realtors. Make your point known. And Dad, I'm going to commit to a white paper that I am going to reach out to, because I know all the presidents, and we have, in all fairness, we have a really strong group of national presidents on its way. Charlie
Yeah.
Strong, Kenny Strong, Leslie Strong. Are those the next three?
Charlie, Leslie, Kenny.
Those are three. Those three are dynamic. They're not
Mhm.
bureaucrats. They're dynamic. They play the game, but they're smart. And, Charlie owns multiple real estate companies. So he,
In New Jersey.
right? I know Kenny does in Utah. What Leslie, I don't know her story. In Texas, what's she doing? She runs.
Yeah, she owns one.
So they understand. So maybe like these are the people, because this isn't done in 1 year. You need to have at least 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 years in a row, because this isn't like a normal company where one CEO can make a vision last. He or she could have a strategic plan and then follow through with the resources and the plan for 5 years.
And we already got 2 candidates for the year after they're done.
And would they be able to continue on the 3 of those?
Well, one is Mike McGrew and the other one is Tracy Casper, and both of them are very involved in real estate.
Treasurer?
He was the treasurer.
And Tracy's awesome. I know her personally. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So again, leadership it's turning over. Like it's the new wave. So let's do this, baby.
We're ready.
I don't want to run for something. I could be, if anyone needs a consultant, they can reach out to me. But I don't want to be. I'd rather be Elon Musk than Barack Obama. I'd rather, you know what I mean? So, all right. Do you have any other takeaways on how you can invest? I said NAR is really good at one thing right now, and that's political affairs.
Oh, their advocacy program is not to be beat. And the only other thing I could say is Azim sent everyone a email on the RPAC auction. It's open now, I think, till Friday. And RPAC, with what's going on in our business, they have done a phenomenal job, NAR, in saving mortgage interest deduction, 1031, and all those crazy things that they're trying to get rid of in our business. And for that alone, RPAC is worth it.
And then the number one bipartisan lobby in the country, from what I understand. And the way I used to sell it as a president is, on any given day, 50% of the money you invest is going towards what you believe in your heart, because they're bipartisan. But then the other 50% is going towards your profession. So I don't always agree on who they support. If anything, a lot of the times I don't agree. But I know overall it's going towards consumer rights, homeowners' rights, property rights. Last thing, I forget to do this. Listen, if you feel like this is the way forward, then get the word out and share this video. I said steal it. There used to be a CD, I'm dating myself, at the CD store, and it said, steal this CD. That was I forgot the band. They actually encouraged you to steal the CD. That's how punk they were. But steal this video. Share it and tag realtors, tag your Las Vegas realtor board of directors, tag people who make differences, share it around, because the national MLS is how we win. Raising the bar on the entry and the professional is the other way we win. And that's all we got for you today, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.